Epstein returns. Today, there was news about Donald Trump and his involvement in the Epstein case, which surprised a lot of people. The main news that blew up the news feed today is this: Trump was an FBI informant in the Jeffrey Epstein case. That's what the Telegraph wrote today. And in their wording, it sounds like this: United States President Donald Trump was an FBI informant in the case of billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. This statement was made by Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the person who is conducting an independent investigation into the circumstances of this case. And one more important detail that I simply must quote in full. So there are no, phrases like, "you took everything out of context." It goes like this. In Mike Johnson's opinion, Trump may have knowingly cooperated with the investigation, since back in 2009 he stated that he had banned Epstein from visiting the Mar-a-Lago club after learning about his unacceptable behavior. That's the main storyline today regarding the news about Jeffrey Epstein. My name is Alexei Pecci. Today is September 6th. And before we start this episode, I want to make a little confession. From being overwhelmed by the news, from constantly working with the news feed, once a week I pour my heart out to a psychologist just so I don't burn out. If you need a gentle daily push to take action, I want to recommend a good YouTube channel where every day there are short videos from a psychologist about how to get out of procrastination, gather your thoughts, and avoid burnout. It's a normal, practical tone without any pseudo-guru attitude. That's why I recommend the YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video, and I suggest you subscribe and keep this partnership for yourself. A couple of videos on repeat.
Boundaries are about honesty, not being cold. You don't need to be always available to be loved. Subtitles.
So the Telegraph puts this idea a bit more gently than Mike Johnson did. The publication writes that, as part of the new developments in the Epstein case, there's a version being discussed about Donald Trump's role as an informant for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, supported by old episodes. The announcement of a ban on Jeffrey Epstein visiting the Mar-a-Lago residence in 2009, Donald Trump's willingness to testify, and so on. A direct quote from the article: a private detective claims that Trump was an FBI informant in the Epstein case and cooperated with the investigation. Well, then there's a long clarification that no one has any official confirmation of the informant's status. There are only statements from the parties and indirect episodes. This is important because the Telegraph newspaper is reporting on a version, not publishing any FBI document. So this is just one version. What's a fact here and what's just noise? A fact? In 2019 to 2020, the lawyer for one of the plaintiffs, Brad Edwards, actually said in an interview that he had nothing bad to say about Trump. That Trump was helpful to the investigation and he was willing to cooperate with the investigation. These words were quoted many times and many media outlets cited these statements from this particular lawyer. But I want to emphasize, this is the lawyer's opinion, not an official status as an FBI informant. This distinction needs to be stated out loud so we don't just fall into some sensational headlines. Now, why did this come up today, and why does anyone even need this? As you know, the story with Jeffrey Epstein and his connections to Donald Trump is rather murky. It came up more than a month ago, and then, thanks to the efforts of the American president's team, it faded into the background. So, the political logic here is clear. Donald Trump is the president. The Epstein case is always a bomb, a time bomb for any administration. The leak that he was an informant does two things at once. First, it justifies Donald Trump's distance from the now deceased billionaire. Like, I wasn't friends with him, I was helping the cops. Trump suddenly becomes such a good guy who not only didn't interfere, but on the contrary, he knew about Jeffrey Epstein's sins and even helped the police. The second one hits Epstein's confidants in politics and business, hinting that we have not only photographs in our archive, but supposedly we also have records of contacts and testimonies. And the Telegraph directly writes that Mike Johnson is actually conducting a separate investigation into this matter, and states that yes, indeed, Trump could have been an informant. That is, he is kind of dangerous not only for Trump's opponents, but also for part of his own ecosystem. Like now, many people have said a lot of things, and then supposedly such information comes to light. What do we know about Trump's statement regarding 2009? In that year, he allegedly banned Jeffrey Epstein from visiting his Mar-a-Lago residence. That's a separate legend that should be treated with caution. In 2019, the Daily Beast and Tampa Bay Times debated whether there was ever a formal ban on Epstein visiting the Mar-a-Lago residence. Was it for harassing female employees? Did it last more than a few months? And did it even happen at all? There is no document with a signature, a big seal, at least not publicly available. Only managers and former club members claim Epstein allegedly visited and was kicked out. But for the current narrative, that's secondary, because the political effect comes from Trump's very statement, where he said, "I kicked Epstein out of the club and helped the police." The fact that several publications picked up this version today, well, it's not about searching for the truth, it's about a media spin in this story. Now, an important point for viewers. How can you tell a real news story from cleverly packaged noise? The first criterion is whether there is an official FBI document marked that Donald Trump is an informant, or at least a direct acknowledgement from the Bureau. There isn't one yet. The second criterion is whether there is confirmation that Trump gave testimony or provided any information that was used by the investigation. Here, yes, there is testimony from lawyers and indirect references in reports by major media outlets. The third question is, who gains from this? At a time when Trump's White House is reshaping foreign policy, when the United States is squeezed between China, Russia, and the internal restructuring of the Pentagon, which I talked about in the previous episode. Useful. Shutting down any open personal narratives and stating that Trump helped the police is actually the best defense in such cases. Like, listen, why aren't we disclosing all the information? Because Trump was an FBI informant, so we just can't reveal it. And for us, who cares about Ukraine? First and foremost, the value of this story is to understand how information policy works in Washington. Today, he's an informant. Tomorrow, he'll be a hero. And the day after that, a tough negotiator for containment. So all of this isn't about the facts. It's about the packaging of the leader of the United States of America. And yes, this will affect how the White House explains tough decisions on sanctions, missions, and money. This is another facet in the image of Donald Trump. See, even in a story like this, why did he stay silent on so much? Because he was reporting everything to the police and cooperating with them. So the recipe here is simple. Keep a cool head. Documents prove facts. There's no evidence showing Trump was an FBI informant. Where? A researcher said it, a lawyer said it, some insider said it, Mike Johnson stated, it's all just a theory. And exactly, you should treat it as a theory, not as a fact, but still it's an interesting story. Just like now, in Trump's team, they're still trying to find a way out of this high-profile case involving Jeffrey Epstein. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.